talk with each other, so I'm not going to go through the introductions I was going to. We simply wanted to present on a factual basis, very low key, today, the information that we have, most of which, or a lot of which, has not been published in the local papers. For example, the testimony that I gave in court, the testimony that Brian Albright corroborated in my cross-examination, has never appeared in court in the papers. Our information in the reply brief to the Supreme Court has not been printed, and that specifically being that there was an affidavit of the county clerk, Sarah Smith, an affidavit of Jenna Watson, the head of the Election Commission, very clearly telling the Supreme Court, we can do this, it will not interfere with the election if you order it onto the ballot, because we had asked that the Supreme Court, since Judge Harnsberger did not do so, direct that it be put on the Supreme Court, on the ballot, on a provisional basis rate, until they could decide the substantive issues. But anyway, Bob is going to handle most of this. I'm going to be very brief, which is contrary to my nature. So with this, I'm going to turn it over to Bob. These guys, you notice, are on the right wing. I'm on the left wing because I'm the progressive side of this coalition. We are together because all of us, the Tea Party folks, the good government folks, my committee, I'm a progressive liberal, all right, I'll be honest about it. But I also am a populist. I stand up for the little people. I stand up for the working people. I stand up for the middle class. And I'm an activist, so, facts are stubborn things. And when I got involved, I had the same perception of these guys as do a lot of people in this town, as does the establishment in this town, as does the paper in this town. And that is that they're wearing tinfoil hats with an antenna that's going out somewhere to Sirius or maybe the Antares system, and they're receiving communications. Well, as I've gotten to know them, they are real human beings. Unless I'm fooled.
Thank you.
And I looked into the facts that they had at the time I became involved, and I'm probably one of the 0.5% informed people in this county, and I knew nothing about the water project other than just vague stuff that had been printed in the paper. But when I looked into it and looked at their information, I then undertook to do an independent investigation of my own. So I FOIA material, have reviewed that, and basically they're right. Facts are stubborn things. This is an horrendous project that is going to cost the water users in both the city and the county tremendously. And there's a way to cut the losses, which I'll explain after Bob does his presentation. So the city's really not harmed if they change course, if they change direction. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Bob, let him do his factual presentation. Then George will do just a brief presentation, and then I'll finish with a couple of comments on the legal aspects, and then open it to any questions, comments, criticisms, whatever you might have.
Okay, thanks.
By the way, we might ask everybody to turn down their cell phones, put it on vibrate. I have not done so, so I'm going to do so at the present.
Thanks, Cliff. What I'm going to show, I think one or two of you may have seen this. No, I guess only one of you. And I actually added 3 or 4 slides up front here because I was talking with Bill Malone just a few days ago, and we agree on the basic premise of how you handle water and sewer. It both flows downhill. Funny, isn't it? But anyway, where would you put your water supply if you lived here? You probably would put it high, right? And your sewer low, for obvious reasons. Water high, sewer low. That's really all you need to know about a water sewer project. There's nothing technical about what I'm about to present. If it gets technical, we'll ask those questions probably of Bill, because he's done water and sewer projects all over. And he actually was the first and only person, I guess, to ever successfully get raw water out of Lake Washita. So the perfect town, unlike where I moved from here, Brownsville, Texas, would have some elevation so you could flow some of that water and some of that sewer downhill. And the perfect town might look like, have a site something like this. If you want to make it more perfect, have water supplies, springs, water flowing out of the mountains. Maybe even have a lake up on top of one of those hills. Would you think this might be the perfect town right here to take advantage of those different elevations? Could be, couldn't it? Anyway, let's talk about DeGray. And this was designed originally because Dr. Jack Sternberg was trying to put together a debate. You'll probably recall, even though I'm not a water engineer, I'm an electrical engineer, I had challenged the city, their entire engineering staff, administration, and their consultants to a debate. And even bet them $1,000 I would win. Why? Because I had the facts. You've just been handed a sheet that has facts on it. And as we go through these, any of you that believes any of those are not a question, are not factual, please speak up and tell us what your concern is, because for most of these, we have the documentation behind it. The things we know, we believe, and we question what we're going to cover, but the biggest one is what we know. These are the facts. And these are the ones that are on your sheet. There's 25 of them. We know, because it's the policy of the Corps of Engineers, that the colonel down in Vicksburg has the authority to allocate up to 50,000 acre feet from Lake Washita. 50,000 acre feet is a lot of water. And we know that an 18-month allocation study began back in February of 2013. And a memorandum of agreement was signed. I think most of you probably saw this photo in the newspaper, right? This is not a memorandum of understanding or thinking about it. It's an agreement pending based on where their not allocation study says that it's not a problem. And that was signed back, as you see right here, 28th of February 2013. So those are the first three facts that we know. Number 4, how many of you would disagree that Lake Washita is superior? It's superior to any lake based on distance, elevation, reliability, size, cleanliness, watershed, and several other things. Nobody disagrees with that? And that must be a fact. You notice down in the corner I have a little, right here, little buttons, so if you question whether or not these are facts as we go along, we take just a little extra time and look at the documentation behind these. We know that the city adopted Resolution 7674, which provides directions to proceed with future water projects. Now, you may want to see this particular resolution, because this particular resolution is rather interesting. It says, in seeking new sources of raw water, priority shall be given to the elimination of impediments to taking water from Lake Washita. And should it not be possible in a reasonable time frame, then the current North Lake Hamilton intake location should be the next priority. This is the city saying this. Prior to undertaking these constructions and expansions shall be thoroughly evaluated and cost effectiveness of expansion versus new facilities. I think there's a possibility that one was skipped. Another section of the resolution says the conservation of existing water resources, right here, and usage shall be a core element of all future planning. Do any of you believe that the city has a conservation plan?
A friend of mine got a conservation plan through FOIA. However, they said that they've never felt it necessary to implement any part of it.
Is this the same one that actually came from another city and had about half of it with lines to it?
I haven't seen it.
I haven't.
But she said that they provided that to her under a FOIA request. And she said, did you know the city had a conservation plan? And I said, no. She says, well, I've got it. But they also told me that they have never felt compelled for any reason to implement any portion of it.
They actually have another city's conservation plan with about half of it marked through, and they've never adopted.
That would make more sense.
Yeah, and I do have a copy of that. Okay, so we know that the city adopted this resolution. And you noticed it said nothing about DeGray. We know the city, however, selected Lake DeGray down in Hot Spring County. They didn't select Washita or Hamilton or Catherine or any of the lakes in Garland County. Do anyone of you disagree with that Entergy would benefit greatly if we took water from DeGray? If you've got about 1,750 horsepower pumps running most of the time, I calculated roughly it's going to cost between $8,000 and $10,000 a day to pump that much water up here over 20 miles.
There's just gonna be one pump.
Just one pump.
That's what engineer told me.
Hope that pump never quits.
Uh-huh.
That's going to be a stout pump. And it's going to be down at DeGray, I guess, right?
Yeah,
We need to meet this engineer, don't we?
you met him.
Oh, already met him?
You didn't hire him for any other project, did you, by any chance?
No.
Okay. We also know that only one United States tanker gate has failed in over 100 years. The Bolton Dam over in California. And there was one that failed in Japan. So we're being told by Entergy we can't have more water from Lake Hamilton, Upper Lake Hamilton, or the Washita plant because of the potential for a tanker gate failure. Those things have got a pretty good record. There's been 38 dams failed, but only 2 tanker gates in the world.
Well, they're only saying we can't have more water until you get an alternate water source. They are not saying you can't have more water out of Lake Hamilton.
Okay. Are you saying this is not a fact?
I'm saying it's a fact, but you didn't tell all of the facts. You can get water out of Lake Hamilton, but Entergy is adopting the position, they're not going to give it to you until you get an alternate source.
Right, right.
Now, that's their current position, it's subject to change.
Current position, okay. We know that the city refinanced millions to pay for some of the improvements that are going on right
Oh,
now.
you skipped 9, I think.
Did it skip that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is very important. You can find this on Entergy's website, by the way. Entergy's don't own the water in Lake Hamilton or in Lake Catherine. The public owns the water. You know, I found this out the hard way a long time ago when I was working with SWEPCO and put in some power plants over in East Texas. We couldn't pollute our own water by making it hot. That's a thermal problem. We had to put in cooling towers because we were going to circulate it right back through the power plant a little later and heat it up again. You got to cool it down because we don't want to impact those fish, those little snail darters. So anyway, the public owns the water, and you can find that on Entergy's own website. We also know that the city did refinance millions, and they're using $3.83 million now for the engineering and design to Christ Engineers. And this is for DeGray, it's not for Washita, Hamilton, or Catherine. We know that the city board paid $1 million plus to Central Arkansas Water for their allocation of $20 million, 20 million gallons a day from Lake DeGray.
Let's make clear again, Bob, that is $1,078,000 for the option to buy water from DeGray. It doesn't buy one drop of water. You've got to purchase the water from the United States by way of the Corps of Engineers.
And we're going to show you at the end of my little presentation. Some of you aren't going to believe this, but we still don't have a contract for one drop of water out of the grave. May not get a contract. Anyway, that's at the end. We also know that the city signed a contract stipulating the pipeline easement to be at locations mutually agreeable to both CAW and Hot Springs. Now, we'll show you a map here in a little bit, and I think you will see that Central Arkansas Water designed where the facilities would go, not Hot Springs. Otherwise, you would think some of the facilities would be in Garland County.
For those of you who don't know, Central Arkansas Water is the former Little Rock Water Works. So that's the Metropolitan Little Rock Water Works.
Well, this is what we're going to show you right here. The easement's convenient to Benton, Bryant, Little Rock, North Little Rock, and all those people that are now in. And let's show you that map. Here is the map. You'll notice that's Hot Springs in the circle. Here's the new water treatment plant right here. And if you notice the red line, that's pretty much a straight line, is it not? From Lake DeGray, that says Benton right there. I don't know if you read it. So is this line really being built to help Central Arkansas or Hot Springs? That's the treatment plant right there in Hot Spring County, and they're planning a second one. Also, there are a couple of potential sites down here for industrial parks. As a matter of fact, if you look at the Chris study, you'll see on page 1 of the considerations was Rockport, Malvern, potential industrial park. Okay. Oh, I guess I missed that one. Just back up again. So the facilities are not located to benefit the true growth corridors. Most of you have heard, have you not, the city manager saying that this treatment plant or these treatment plants are being located so as to facilitate Hot Springs growth corridor? You see Jack Mountain area growing?
Bob, could I say something about the industrial park before we get off that? I have some information from the county judge of Hot Spring County, who's a longtime friend of mine, Bill Scrimsher. He's a Democrat. And he has had extensive pressure put on him by some of the people from Hot Springs. For example, one day he was in his office and he received a phone call, and the head of the Chamber of Commerce, David Watkins, and some board of directors were at the Hot Spring County Industrial Park. For those of you who don't know, this is Jones Mill, where in 1957 General Motors shut down. We had Reynolds Metal there. There have been some other industrial outlets there. And these folks demanded that he drop everything, come out there and meet with them. And he declined. So later, Jim Brown, the head of the Chamber of Commerce, came to the courthouse and in front of multiple witnesses told Bill Scrimsher that he is standing in the way of progress, that Hot Springs needs the Hot Spring County Industrial Park because, quote, we don't have any flat land in Garland County on which to locate industry, and we're having to turn away industry. So, the county judge of Hot Spring County is reluctant to engage in this because underneath this whole facility is a series of tunnels, water lines, some of which are right on the bank of the Washita River, and there's been a lot of pressure put on him to clean up this site with a particular firm in Alabama. All this firm's going to do is take all the debris off. They're going to do no pollution cleaning. So he's reluctant to get into it because even to clear that up, you have to have the Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality, the Environmental Protection Agency, and who knows what they're going to get into. Now, if Hot Springs wants to work with Hot Spring County, or Garland County wants to, then Hot Springs or Garland County needs to assume half the risk of the cleanup is his position. Then we'll be happy to cooperate. And you will see on the slide, Bob, can you back up that slide to, and I knew this because I'm from Hot Spring County, from where the water treatment plant is located, it's almost a straight shot down the ridge across south of Lake Catherine to right below Rimmel Dam, and right across the Washita River from the Rimmel Dam is the Hot Spring County Industrial Park. So we think that is a major part of this plan to locate the water treatment plant up on top of the Jack Mountain.
Okay, so
There are also, I might add, 3 major timber companies that have vast holdings. The Ross Foundation from Arkadelphia is where the water treatment plant's going to be located. The Anthony Timberlands and Deltic Timber also owns a bunch of land. I think Deltic Ray owns 35,000 acres adjacent to Red Oak. Now they did, they could have sold it to somebody else, I'm not sure.
I'm not aware of that. I just don't know that, the only part that I handled was the part, the 800 acres that they had bought back in 1955 from another timber family, and that's what they converted into the Red Oak Ridge. I do know that John Anthony he told me that he had either 1,600 or 2,600 acres right back of his Bob Ollie Farms property there in that area. But that's when we were doing the water district out there, and sewer, because we're close, we were serving a little bit of his property, but not all of it.
And it is beautiful land, and with the mountain in the background for development. The issue I have is should the water users of Hot Springs and Garland County pay to enhance the value of the holdings of timber companies to make it developable land? Because if you put in water, the value of the property, and Rick, you and I have discussed this as a realtor, Rick knows, the value goes up substantially. And of course, what the city is not saying is that if you put in water, you got to follow with sewer. And we don't have any cost on a sewer plant or sewer mains into this area. And right on the Hot Springs website today, unless they've scrubbed it, and if they have, I printed off a copy, the city of Hot Springs is under a $100 million mandate from the EPA, from the Environmental Protection Agency, to improve its existing sewer plant and its sewer lines because they're leaking, they're inadequate, they're outdated. $100 million, that's on the old one. All right, I'm sorry, Bob, I'm just trying to get comments in at the relevant point.
you missed it by about 3 slides, but we'll get to that one.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, we went ahead and handed you a map out that we'll discuss further when we get to that point. Tell you some of what Cliff's talking about. Okay, fact number 15, and again, remember these are facts that we put together because my original thinking was that this was going to be a debate with the Chris Engineering Company. And it's kind of difficult for them to debate facts or shoot holes in any of these facts. We know that the city signed a contract committing the city to an 80-foot right-of-way. Well, 80 foot, does that seem a little excessive for a 42-inch pipeline? Well, here's the contract that they signed. And if you want to consider how wide 80-foot is, that's a 5-lane highway. As a matter of fact, the Highway 7 bridge over Lake Hamilton is 68 foot wide. Got that out of the newspaper just a couple of days ago because they're going to start doing some maintenance on those bridges. So you can have some space left over even after you, I mean, you can put a 5-lane highway down this right of way, not a 42-inch pipeline.
So I have a question about the agreement between the city and CAW.
Okay?
Do you read that as that the easement that CAW can use, that the city will acquire, is that stop at the site of the new plant? Or
No, let me address that. Ray, the contract, and I have the earlier proposed models as well. Originally, it provided that Little Rock would get the east half of this 80-foot wide easement for their own pipeline. Then they merged it together, and it's a joint easement all the way 20 miles from the Lake DeGray intake down Arlymore Landing. And I drove out there not very long ago just to look. It's way off down in the woods from Bismarck. I mean, a long way. And it's all uphill. And the city of Hot Springs is obligated under this contract, and this is part of the additional payment for the option of 20 million gallons of water a day, just the option of it. Hot Springs is obligated at its, quote, sole cost and expense to acquire the right-of-way for this 20 miles. Nobody has yet estimated what that will be. And I know from having spoken to the Bismarck Property Owners Association and, you know, some of the family over there, there's prominent realtors who own a lot of the property, they're very much opposed to this. So they're going to bow their back. It's going to be difficult to get through. And I know how difficult it is to get through because several years ago, decades ago, ARCLA tried to come through my home community of Antioch. And my neighbors called me, my relatives. We just balked. And they had to cut a deal with us to put natural gas into the entire community in exchange for our relenting. So Bismarck is preparing to organize as well. And it's not just Bismarck, it's other areas to the east of Bismarck. And these are people from my home county. And they're very concerned about this.
Well, here's what the contract says. Hot Springs, at their sole cost and expense, will furnish that 80-foot easement.
And Ray, Central Arkansas Water has an option to buy that if Hot Springs doesn't proceed with this project. At cost.
By what?
By the easement.
All right, so I'm still a little bit confused about the easements that Hot Springs is required to obtain. Does it just go to the plant site?
Yes.
The proposed plant site, or does it go beyond that?
It goes to the plant site as far as we know.
Okay,
Okay.
that was my question.
20 miles to the top of Jack Mountain.
Right, okay. All right, that was my question.
Yes.
I just didn't know whether we were, whether the city obligated itself to run it another distance.
No,
Up towards
but
Oklahoma.
there's no distribution system cost in the
I
city's fee.
understood that.
Yeah, you got to go from the other side of the plant now. You know, I mean, there'll be more easement required there.
Ray, this is the only thing that is addressed in the contract. So you being an engineer and an attorney, you can tell us, does this preclude us from having to buy right of way all the way to Little Rock? You're the one that answers that.
I have to study that before I make that. I'm one of those attorneys that does not hip shoot.
Okay. But that's all
my
it says.
I wasn't saying anything about you.
I know, but I plead guilty anyway.
But sometimes if you throw a rock into a pack of dogs, the hit dog will holler. He may have just hollered, I don't know.
Good one, Ray, good one.
Okay, we also know that these are not truly located for Hot Springs and Garland County's growth corridor. They're not even located, many of them, in Garland County.
Bob,
Yes.
tell them what a growth corridor is and where that wording actually came from.
Growth corridor, you mean where Mr. Watkins said he came
Was
from?
he the one that said that?
He was one initially. We did an FOI to the city saying, provide documentation showing that this is Hot Springs growth corridor. And we got an interesting response back from the deputy city manager saying, we have no documentation showing that's a growth corridor. That's just a term the city manager came up with.
That's it.
So, here, by the way, I don't know if you can see these numbers or not, but there's 36,000, 34,000, 37,000, 37,000, and this is the bypass down here, 30,000. So there's a lot of traffic out there every day, 37,000 vehicles out here by airport, 36,000 at Howard Pike. And if you look at the growth corridor, so-called, let's find some numbers down here. Here's a 2,000, a 1,500, a 1,700, and a 1,300. Doesn't look like a growth corridor.
They're hoping it is.
Hoping it is, okay.
Next growth corridor is probably 270 west.
Go west, young man.
Well, I mean,
That's where it is.
I've talked to neighboring counties that said they're tickled to death with what's going on because they're growing. They are
You
west.
betcha.
And 270 West would grow even more if Bill and I could get our sewer improvement district back online. It was wrecked by the economy situation in 2007 and 8. We had petitions being circulated out there at that point in time. That is the only area in the Hot Springs area that does not have a good public sewer system. And Bill had designed one and was ready to implement it. We had, like I say, petitions being circulated when the economy went south. To get that thing built, I can guarantee you that 270 West will explode with growth.
I think
So
so.
those condos out there on the left,
They don't have.
They don't have sewer yet?
They don't. That's where Bob Aspel and Mario live. They don't have sewer.
Yeah.
they have to pump it out, is that right?
They did. I don't know whether they finally put a small plant in there or not. Do you know, Bill?
Yeah, plan.
They got a plant
They have a
now.
plant?
The first plan was,
When I put that in, it was a holding tank.
it was gonna be a holding tank that they were gonna tie onto our system, right, Bill? That we were gonna put in. And then, I guess, after a number of years, they got permission from ADQ and the health department to put in a treatment plant. I guess it's extended air or something with extended air.
All of this can change though as soon as Walmart relocates to Jack Mountain.
Where there's a couple, 1,500, 2,000 cars a day going by, but that'll pick up with Walmart.
Yeah, it would. Fact 17, we know that pumping water uphill is costly. Yet the city selected a lake that's 170 foot lower and has several high hills across. Now again, anyone thinks these are not facts, just speak up. We know that 42-inch pipeline's oversized. It's kind of weird, we bought 20 million gallons down in DeGray, so we need an intake that will handle 20 million. We've got a pipeline that'll handle 40 million
Who
or
figured
more, and we've got a treatment plant that's 15.
Who figured the 40 million? Bill, do you do that?
No. I wouldn't be.
I would question that figure, 40 million thing. Is that right or wrong?
That is a number that we extrapolated from Chris Engineering saying
No kidding.
that their 30-inch line would handle so much and their 24-inch line would handle so much. So we took the power square area and extrapolated it from that.
I would have thought that'd have been 10 million off, but I'm not an engineer.
You would thought it'd be what? More or less?
Less.
Less
About
than?
30 million a day. You know, I mean, you're taking.
Well, now, they used a number that I kind of questioned. That's a 5 cubic foot per second flow rate.
Well, I mean, that's got to.
Bill, did you come up with something different?
I just came up with, a million gallons a day is like 700 gallons a minute. And that's 28,000 gallons a minute for that pipe. I don't know, I have to do some
Okay.
That was my books when I got
Well, the cubic feet per minute, that's kind of critical, is it not, Bill? I mean, you don't.
Yeah, and the 5 feet per second is pretty fast. Pretty
That pump, that single pump's gonna be singing.
That's good. I try to do stuff over 2, but less than 3, you know.
You don't want to push it so fast, you're damaging the pipe that it's
You
running.
know, it just takes more effort to go faster, any, you know, water or whatever you're doing. Push it forward.
Okay. But even if it's,
Well, it's better with laminar flow than.
I agree with you. It's
It is
oversized.
oversized.
It's oversized.
yeah, there's no question it's oversized if we're taking it to 15 million gallons a day.
You got to share with CAW, though.
Yeah.
We're wondering if this might be the case.
But you sit there and wonder, even if they went with a 42-inch pipe, why did they need an 80-foot easement?
For future lines to go in there for CAW. I mean, that's what I'm.
That's what I figured.
Sure.
That has to be.
It's very clear from the contract, that's the intent, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that is. a
When I heard that the first time, I said, well, they're clearly making it wide enough to put in probably a couple more big lines
Yes.
for future expansion for CAW.
A couple.
You remember what Stuart Nolan let out of the bag at one of your meetings on for 2
Yeah.
Yes.
units?
Yeah, there's going to be another,
Second plan.
second plant's already designed there, yes.
Second plant for Hot Springs?
Yeah, well, yes, it
Well,
is, it
in
is on.
Hot Spring County,
Yeah.
beside this one, there's a second.
Not for Hot Springs Water Supply, though.
I thought they were talking about at first building a 10 MGD plant and then going to the second one later on when they needed it.
About 15 million. with
It's
future
15 that'll go to a second
Okay,
15,
all right.
so they'll have 30. Fact 19, we know the city's declared a water shortage. And you know what they base that shortage on? There's a hot day back in 2012 when they had 23 million gallons a day, which they say is 80% of their capacity. And they need to take their capacity up to 30 million gallons a day to avoid that. Well, the guideline is from ADH, but ADH never wrote them a letter and said, you need immediate water. The guideline actually says you need to start planning for future water supply when you hit 80% of your capacity. That's all it says. But they're blaming this shortage on something that ADH never did say.
Bob?
Yes.
So something they didn't tell you too is that they can produce up to 30 million gallons a day of treated water.
We're going to get to that one too.
Sorry. Okay.
They actually can, but since he let the cat out of the bag, I think most of you already know that at the existing location, the contract with Energy and FERC allows them to take 30 million gallons right there,
Right now.
right now.
And it's 23, 80% of 30.
They can take it, but I don't think that they have the capability of producing.
No, they can't make that much water. Current plant.
Six.
They could upgrade their plant a little bit, couldn't they?
They could, I think most of these allocations, wherever you get them for, is based on an average. So you can, if you're producing 10 MGD in the wintertime for an average, then they will probably allow you to go to 30 MGD during the summertime.
That's correct.
You can't exceed the 20 MGD on an annual average.
They don't want you
But
to.
they provide for peak conditions to be able to allow you to keep up with it.
The contract don't want you to exceed 30 MGD per day for more than 90 days. And they do have a different price schedule if you do.
Exactly.
So it's kind of interesting.
I'd be curious to see what the average is. I didn't know.
The average year-round, Rick, is around 10.
I'd say it's more than that. I'd say in the winter months, they're around 10 to 11. Some of the documentation I've seen in the past, the maximum was in that 22 range, 22 to 23, just for a few days. But I bet it would be somewhere around 15 maybe, average.
They sent me the spreadsheet on that. Since 2012, we haven't had a day that's hit 20.
Probably not, because we've had pretty good weather since then.
So anyway, yeah.
In Miss Ellen's letter that she wrote, how many did you say that 2013 was the lightest water use.
From July of 2013, July 1st, 2013 to June 30th of 2014, their water billing was the lowest it's been in 7 years.
Yeah. That was a great letter to them, by the way.
And they're thinking of raising the rates because they don't have the revenue.
Yeah,
they want.
right, that's exactly right,
Yeah.
because they're not selling enough water.
Okay, back 20.
If they'd add a few more Walmarts, they'd be able to have a little bit more revenues.
Since you're talking about Walmart, we know that the city refused service to Hart's, Chick-fil-A, Walmart, 2 Walmarts, right?
3,
3?
2 grocery stores and 1 supercenter.
Okay.
Never good.
Oh, are they allowing them to put one of the Walmart grocery stores in the town, though? There's not a water shortage in the city.
Well, they
It's
want
only
to
outside.
put one on Hagen Ferry.
Yes, okay.
One on Albert Avenue.
Yes.
My understanding was they weren't gonna put, if they couldn't put one, they weren't gonna put one, if they couldn't do both, one on 7 South and the other one in town, they weren't gonna do either.
Okay.
I think Walmart's holding off until they find out the result of all this.
They are, as a-
Valuable information. So,
Rick, I spoke to Walmart. Matter of fact, I had a long conversation with the gentleman from Bentonville. He said they just hope the political winds shift in Hot Springs and they'll be back. There's no
Yeah.
rush. There's other places they can build.
What happened to Lake Hamilton School District?
They went on after being denied the sewer, which was a mistake on the city's part.
Right?
It was a win situation for Hot Springs and Lake Hamilton, and they denied it, so now with this new millage increase, they have expanded their sewer plant, and they want nothing to do with Hot Springs. Pretty plain and clear.
But many years ago, when we put in Highway 70 West Water Improvement District, that brought those water lines out past Lake Hamilton School. There was a subdivision on the left-hand side past Lake Hamilton School. And went out there and served that subdivision and everything else on the way out as well. And I'm not sure how many places Bill Malone can probably let us know, but one of the things that nobody's talked about a whole lot is that when Bill first designed, you correct me if I'm wrong, when he first designed the Lake Hamilton Water Improvement District, which is that part that is out Highway 7 South, includes Ripwood Point and down 290 a ways, out Amity Road. I think he designed the water line going across those bridges at like an 8. And the city says, no, we want you to put in a 12 for future growth, and we will pay the cost of the difference. Is that correct, Bill?
Correct.
Am I remembering the numbers right?
Yes.
Did they do it anywhere else that you know of? I know they did it there, because I remember talking to you about that. I remember they paid the cost of the difference to upgrade that line from an 8 to a 12. You know, if that isn't plans from the city to expand water into that area, I don't know what the hell it is.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I don't remember them doing that on 70 or any other districts.
Okay, yeah, they on Red Oak, we did it on Red Oak.
Across the bridge, okay.
No, south of, where Red Oak subdivision comes in, it was big lines were there. And we had an 8, and we upsized it to a 12.
Did they upsize it did they upsize it out 290 to where we hooked on the Tanaco to the Diamond Head?
They went out 290 straight south,
Okay.
and upsized that from various sizes, from 6 and 8 up to a 12, which was a good deal and worked out fine.
But don't you think that was a wise thing to do, though?
Yes.
It was wise if you're planning on expanding your service area and expanding your growth in that area, but it's inconsistent with what they're saying now. They don't want to supply any more water outside the city. I mean, not completely, but They don't want new, big growth out there, and they already planned for big growth by paying for those expansions.
It was a proper thing to do at the time. It was a neighborly thing to do at the time.
Yep.
And it was a neighborly thing to do to provide water in North Garland County, but the city of Hot Springs was doing. We say the same thing on several other situations where the city wouldn't cooperate and the citizens had to get together and do it themselves. Take another plan. If they're not careful, that's what's going to happen here.
I think it's important that we don't give the city all this authority as they're trying to do this. They're going to be one of the biggest water districts in the state, and they're inconsistent. What you use a good word, you use neighborly there. You don't know what to expect from them. One of my biggest objections is, you know what, don't know what they'll do next. Today you look like you have a great relationship and it's going to work, and then the next thing you know it isn't. And they give you a reason that's at best marginal in their reason. I mean, if you just look at what the first harps, when we were going to turn down the harps down there on South 7, I mean, the sewer connection, the water connection was already sitting there on the property, and Foley didn't want to give it to them because they were outside the city limits. It is political. It is not about being neighborly, being anything. It's very political. And are we going to have the water department, Hot Springs Municipal Utilities, ultimately running the city and the county, dictating it? Because that's the direction they're going. Because they tell you, if you control the water, you have all the marbles. And that's what this battle's about.
By the way, Don had recently talked to an ADH employee who will remain nameless, but might just share with this group. They will
He's
not
scared for his
legally-
job in Hot Springs. He's based in Hot Springs, but the city is putting pressure on him to keep his mouth shut about what's right and what's legal. If you ask for water and you're within 300 feet, water and sewer, and you're within 300 feet of existing facilities, the Department of Health says that you should get it. And he's based here in Hot Springs. Well, he didn't want his name used. But you're supposed to get it if you're within 300 feet. The city has told him to deny any requests, and he said, I can't legally do that because of the way that the Department of Health looks at requests if there are existing facilities. And that this would apply to the Walmarts being turned down, among other things, subdivisions.
Who is this person with? Don't get his name, but who's he
He's with the Arkansas Department of Health, environmental specialist.
I'll find that out.
I actually did this. I
understand.
told him I wouldn't use his name, so I did.
Yeah.
Cost you hard enough.
No, I want to say something, because we're at the point right now, we need to raise some money. And we need to buy some billboards outside the city limits and put on closed for business in the county, okay? If you're coming to Hot Springs or to Garland County and you want to create jobs and stuff, you have to do it in the city.
Yep.
You're not welcome in the county anymore.
The county is closed by.
Because that's basically what they're doing, okay? This is asinine.
How do you think this affects my business?
Well, absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm gonna find out that rule, that's gonna get out in the public, okay?
Let me interject this. It's wonderful that Rick Raymond, the broker at Crowley's here, because if you can talk to any real estate person in town, and I wasn't a great real estate guy, but I did it for several years, and there's not a real estate person that I can find that can tell me of any development south or east right now that's on the drawing board of any significance. And you can go down to the Legends on South 7, it never sold out. You can go down to they're off Fish Hatchery Road, never sold out. No one showed up for the auction to buy the unsold units. You can go down on South 7, and that big one up there above the Clarion still is in, I don't even know what the status it's in anymore. We don't have any planned areas to the south and east, with the exception of Bob Malt's program to put a horse condo organization or something out there, which is already getting pushback from animal activists because it's not a large enough area for the animals. So, Rick, do you know of anything?
Well, there was, the only one developing out there is that Tribeca out there on the right.
It's right on 7.
on 7 there, but the builder went to pull his, pay his impact fee to get his meters, and they declined it. The city declined it. They did finally acquiesce and give him water out there, but again, this is a situation, said, oh, you're in the county.
There is a development that's about a mile from Highway 7 on 290 on the right, has a nice stone bridge and stonework. It has been there, because I go over Jack Mountain all the time to my home county of community of Antioch over there. I call it a proud suburb of Possum Trot, Bob, if you know where Possum Trot is. And this development has been sitting there for 5, 8 years, 10 years maybe. It's got one house built in it.
Yep.
Glencairn, is that?
Glencairn, yeah. That's it.
Yeah, what's it called?
Glencairn,
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Glencairn subdivision.
yeah.
But they're making money there because that's all they're making hay on that subdivision.
Sure has some nice streets out there,
They do.
Yeah, they do.
expensive.
It's a beautiful development, but nobody's buying.
Bob,
Well, let's,
one more thing, and that is, I'm aware of the state health department regulation, that's what it is, it's a regulation, that requires someone who has a dwelling or a commercial establishment within 300 feet of gravity sewer system to connect. Now, my understanding was, at least in the past, they did not enforce that as against if it were going to be a force main situation, if you were going to be doing it with grinder pumps. But I did not know that there was a requirement that they hook on to water if the water was in 300 feet. I don't know that one to be a fact. Is that a fact? Is that what you hear?
That's what this gentleman told me.
Okay, I'd have to look at it and see, because I do know that.
Good idea.
I've known the other one, the 300 feet from gravity sewer, has been there for a long time.
Well, essentially, the city has told him to keep his mouth shut and don't try to enforce that.
well, let's proceed on.
But if you can find that, send it to me, I'd like to know.
My 15-minute presentation is a little bit over here already. We also know that the city at one time not long ago had 43% water losses. In other words, they produced 43% more potable water than they sold. City manager says they've taken that down to half, but if you FOI, you will discover they have no documentation that they've done that whatsoever.
If they have had a loss reduction, that means our situation is not as bad as they said it was earlier.
It's true, because that was 2012.
I mean, it's got $12 million on the metering system that might have helped in some of that situation. I don't know.
Except that they were to implement a conservation system.
Yeah.
Speaking of that,
They could, if they put in the right software, they could shut down
Sprinkler meters
sprinkler meters.
for alternate days.
Yep.
That's quite true.
But they didn't purchase the software.
that would have been pretty simple to do.
Well, let me interject that when they discover that you have a leak by reading that, by that radio transmission of that information, they don't call you, nor do they call your cell phone, nor do they text you, nor do they email you. They mail you a letter. Okay, now, so whatever the leak is, whatever the loss of water is, it's being wasted, even though it's ran through your meter. They notify you by letter. Now, if you had a crisis, wouldn't you contact somebody in some way, or perhaps even go turn it off, because they actually have the capability to call you. They can call you and tell you, we're not going to pick your trash up on Christmas. By the way, did any of y'all not know that?
Correct.
That you're not going to have your trash picked up on Christmas Day? Because they can always call and tell me.
Anyway, we also know that the city has no conservation plan, like we were talking earlier. They have a rough draft of another city's conservation plan that they've changed it, marked it out some, but they've never adopted anything. Fact number 23. Strong word there, misrepresented. City misrepresented or omitted factual data. You've heard people tell us that DeGray is closer than Washita. They haven't told us the true capacity we had to dig that out, and their own website disagrees. If you look under water or utilities in their websites, you'll see that they say their capacity is 27.5. Then you scroll further down through one of their presentations, they'll tell you their capacity is 23. So what is it really? Do they know? And the water intake available, we had to dig that out. Nobody had ever told us. The contract says you can take 30 million gallons a day.
By the way, the closer than DeGray argument, Ray, is a word game. It's closer because of where they're locating the water treatment plant. I mean, that's the word game.
Oh, it's a distortion.
It's a distortion of reality.
For sure it is.
Has anybody done a cost estimate, any of the engineers done a cost estimate on what it would take to upgrade the North Lake Hamilton treatment plant to 30 million gallons a day?
As a matter of fact, I think they started that project at one time when Jacobs was working. And they were going to increase the capacity 9 million gallons a day. They started the project and, you know, the fellow's crane fell over and killed him, and the lawsuits started, and I think the project must have just stopped. But we can show you a letter from the Department of Health saying, you don't need to do some of this stuff. And they were talking all the way back to South Lake Hamilton. All you need to do is upgrade what you've got, including the Lakeside treatment plant, which the city wants to abandon. See, that's good for 6 million gallons a day right there.
And he wants to, quote, mothball that plant.
Yes, mothball. And the health department went a
That's
step
where
further.
Royal, is that plant where Royal gets their water, the lakeside? Where is the lakeside?
No, the Lakeside is a series of 5, 6 lakes.
Just up over the mountain right here on.
Been there for years.
Yes, you can drive by it from here pretty easy. It's, but the health department recommended put you another little intake down there at your existing plant and run up to those lakes to make sure you keep them full, especially during peak periods. So they had some good ideas, but the city is basically ignored them. So anyway, we also know, number 24, the city omitted many costs. They started off saying 75, then 62, it's down, I think, to 61.5 million now. But that's for pipeline, the intake, and one treatment plant. They've got no elevated storage, no distribution system,
Bob, the figures.
no right of way.
No right of way, that's the key.
That's a biggie.
The figures and the little propaganda insert with the water bill says 70.5 million to 80.5 million. But again, it doesn't include the right-of-way and distribution system, a lot of other costs.
That's a moving number, and since Rick's here, could you give us a ballpark what that right-of-way is going to cost?
Well, it depends on who you talk to, Wayne Woodall or Ross Whipple. I don't think either one of those gentlemen are gonna give it away. That's the biggest ballpark I can give you. So, and they are both pretty good businessmen, pretty stubborn. So, I don't think that they're gonna agree to give up 8-foot right of way to separate some of the property. And also, speaking of Mr. Woodall, I talked to his son a month or so ago, Gary Woodall, and most of the property where DeGray is was owned by the Woodalls at one time. And they were forced to sell at, I think, $200 an acre is what he told me. He said that the original contract stated that DeGray was going to be built for flood control and recreation. It never was built for water supply. And he said he remembers that and still has the contract. So I don't know if that makes any difference or not, but that's what he told me.
Okay.
Back in the dark ages, when I went to Henderson State Teachers College then, it's Henderson State University now, we were being told on campus, especially in a conservation class I had, that they were building that lake for water impoundment to sell water to Texas, Bob.
Okay.
And that was what was going around campus when they were trying to educate me.
Yeah, we keep hearing that Texas wants that water. Anyway, I've never seen anybody from Texas up here trying to buy it.
Well,
The bottom line, and one of the biggies is here, this thing right here. AEH actually got on the city's case in a couple of letters and admonished them for leaving out operating costs. Now, how can you have a plan and not have future operating costs? These operating costs are about half what this is going to cost. And the capital costs will eventually be paid for. The operating costs only go up. They always continue on.
And the figures that they've been touting, your bill's only gonna go up about $10 a month. It's based on that 60 to 70 million dollars. It's not based on the total.
That is correct. It's also in the letter that we have, FOIA internal document. It very clearly says that this $10 per month average increase in 2018 is only so good as the assumptions going in, and the writer of the letter from the court is questioning the assumption.
Right.
And to minimum users.
George is going to address
And the
that later.
minimum users, that was the other thing that $10 was.
Does that include, that's just the water. too.
That's right.
Those
He's
of us
gonna
that are
address
on
that
the
one later. Let's
sewer.
talk about costs later outside
Yeah,
mine, once I'm finished, okay?
Okay.
And the final one here, if you think the city doesn't have a history of waste, did they waste $2.8 million for engineering and design for a site, South Lake Hamilton, that they were told would never be approved? Did they spend that money or did they not? Okay. This is your list. You've got 25 items on it. If any of them are not factual, let us know.
Big Bob,
Yes.
I don't want to rush it, but I got to leave here in about 20 minutes.
I won't take 5 minutes.
I'm really believe that.
Well, I won't.
This,
Unless you ask questions.
this would have already been over if there hadn't been comments. Anyway, now let's go to what we believe. Based on these facts, we believe the city violated their own resolution. Washita was obviously written in there as the top priority and followed by Hamilton. They recommend expanding existing plants and a conservation plan. These all make sense, do they not?
Yes.
They've not been done.
They haven't been done. They've been ignored. They violated their own resolution. And again, here's their resolution. We already jumped ahead to that, so I'm going to just pass it. It was signed back June 7th of 2011. We believe the water treatment plants, the raw water intake, and pipeline are not located to benefit the city of Hot Springs or Garland County. Any of you believe that? We believe the expense for the water treatment plant, the intake, the pipeline are to be paid for by the current customers. So we're going to build a lot of facilities in Hot Spring County to benefit perhaps what you see on that map that was handed to you. We believe the intake should be located Lake Washita, and the treatment plant should be located in the real growth corridor, Garland County.
Of course, you know I disagree with that.
I'm not even going to ask why. We believe there's no water shortage. City of Hot Springs has arbitrarily come up and misused 88 guidelines to justify their actions.
And I think in order to even say they're at 80%, they have to underestimate what the treatment plant capacity is.
What their true capacity is.
Yeah.
And then I have to discount what their savings too on their unaccounted for water.
Which is to say,
Their unaccounted for water. that's
Oh, absolutely.
33%. When you factor that in there, the health department warning goes way down.
absolutely. Good point.
Could we get some, to help bolster this, our argument on this, some other cities, what their unaccounted water is?
It should, I can
Yeah.
tell you, it should be between 10 and 15%.
10, 15?
Yeah.
I was going to say, in Brownwood, we used to run 10 or 12%.
Okay, okay.
In Norman, there was a big article in the paper, they had reduced theirs down to like 12, 15%, and they were saving a bunch of money.
Oh, yeah.
No,
Saved enough to
they
buy a
get-
new truck.
Because
Yeah.
water operators get awards on plaques on the wall when it goes below 10.
Yes, this is true. We believe the project cost is excessive. They're telling us now 61 million without any right of way and all those other things. Elevated storage and so forth, distribution. But the engineers have recently said 80 million, and they even have a number of impact on your water bill if it goes to 100 million. So they think it could be 100 million themselves. We believe, though, that the people should have a vote. That's what our petition drive is all about, people. They should have a vote and a voice before a community spends $100 million of your money. And we believe that there are only a couple of people responsible for the very poor handling of this project. And I'm not even going to mention Watkins and Foley's name. Oh, I'm sorry about that.
Folly.
Now, we also questioned a couple of things. Why did the Washita site change? Jacobs had picked out a pretty good site up by that dam. You know, it would have been, what, a couple of miles down to the water treatment plant? And Christie's now picked some more inaccessible sites, but, you know, Rick had made the point that that might not be a bad location over there that they picked now to serve the true growth corridor, put them a treatment plant over there. It's already elevated. It'll have a heck of a good gravity flow into the growth corridor. So it might not be that bad. We questioned whether or not the city has eminent domain in all counties. We talked to 8 lawyers, and we now have 2 of them that says yes, they do, including Cliff. And since there's another lawyer sitting here,
Ray, what do you think?
what do you think, Ray?
I'm not gonna hip shop that either. I've used a lot of, I've condemned a lot of property. But I don't remember whether we had to condemn any outside the city. Ray Smith was the attorney when we did the stuff out Acres Road in other county. I don't remember whether
If Hot Springs can condemn property in Hot Springs County, why can't they go down to Bowie County, Texas and condemn something?
Sir?
I mean, what's to keep them from going up north Arkansas and condemning something?
We have to prove it. You have to prove it.
Okay, I knew you were gonna say something about convenience and necessity.
No, it's taking private land for public use. I think they probably do have the right to do it.
Really? Okay. So we now have 3 out of 9. We question why the city's not making those ADH recommended improvements, especially at the current treatment plant. There are a lot of things in those letters from ADH that made a lot of sense and were very cost effective. They should be revisited.
Talking about South Lake County. Is that
No,
what you're talking about?
no, we're talking about improvements to the existing plants and conservation plans and those sorts of things.
And
Reducing the
they have a whole
waste.
list of recommendations that would delay the need to increase water for another 15 to 20 years.
Okay.
Spend $100 million.
We also questioned what location role the CAW had. It's pretty obvious they didn't want to design a pipeline for Hot Springs or Garland County, is it? Okay, now we're going to expose something. We've already done some of them, the water ownership shortage, Walmart, 30 million. There's also a location, by the way, not that far up the lake from the existing treatment plant called the Blue Hole. I can show you photos of the depth finder showing it's 43 foot deep there. We put an intake up there, we wouldn't have to worry about tanker gates. But now let's show you some emails. This is where it kind of gets interesting. These are emails between Mr. Watkins, CAW, Corps of Engineers in Vicksburg, Folsom. Dallas, Fort Worth, and Washington DC. And I noticed we have one fellow that showed up from, the news media from Central Record didn't show up, but you're with Hot Springs Daily, right?
Yeah,
Don't let me forget, I'll give you a copy of these emails if you're interested in them.
please.
But these are some interesting things that we have FOI'd. And this is going to tell you that the city's proposed contract never came to fruition to take water from DeGray. It's at loggerheads right now.
What, you say they really don't have a contract?
They don't have any water from DeGray. Matter of fact, they're recommending they do a water allocation study like they're currently about to finish up with Washington. Is that interesting or what? Now, here's where the fellow from Dale Kimbrough from CAW is that we need to get the Center for Excellence over in Fort Worth or Dallas to approve all of this. So when they did it, oh, okay, this is not necessarily in the proper order. This is another one from Dan Jackson. He's with Economist Inc. over in Texas, and he says most residential ratepayers will have an increase of $10 or so by 2018.
And by the way, Brian Albright denied that there was an economic study in court, but there is one, as we've seen from the emails.
It's on the website, folks.
That $10 is based on 5,000 gallons used.
It's also a
So it's
city
$2
rate.
per thousand.
It's also inside the city rate, it does not,
Oh, yeah.
that's not the county rate.
That's $15 for the county.
And notice the loose language, it said $10 or so.
Yeah.
By the way,
Is it, Mike, that is just the water too, so if.
Yes.
yes,
If
just
you're
water.
if you're paying also sewer, it's gonna be like, sewer
Okay,
is
now,
based on your
the
water.
sewer rates are set separately. We could raise the water rate without raising the sewer rate. Sewer rate, you are absolutely right, it's based on your water usage, but it's a separate rate structure.
That's correct.
Wait till about,
Okay, so your sewer rate wouldn't necessarily go
Not
up
at the
in
same
the
time,
same-
not in the plan today, yeah.
that'll come a few months after the water goes up. Are the pumps for Lake Washita, this is the Corps asking about the pumps in Lake Washita, where they're gonna be located.
This is July,
There-
look at the date of this.
Yeah, they're trying to find out, they're trying to wrap up this Washita study, but the city don't want to talk about Washita. The Corps is working to
What
get
is the
information
date?
on
What's the
Washita,
date?
but the
July
CAW
2014.
guy gives them CAW's
July
information.
21st,
The
I
city
think.
doesn't even respond to this, best we can tell. And they're saying they'll be,
This was
they'll
July
okay.
23rd right here.
Now, here's from Brian Albright. He's hearing rumblings about the presentation. That's the one they had over beside Horner Hall, and they moved it from Horner Hall to a little small room some of you probably went to. But this is where they didn't allow the public, and of course, we've got a couple of JPs, 3 JPs and the county judge here. You'll know you guys couldn't ask questions about Walmart, any embarrassing questions at that meeting. Oh, this is one where was slipped in. Again, it doesn't relate. But they're saying Los Angeles uses 550 million gallons a day and so forth. Says, per capita, why is it so much more in Hot Springs? And Watkins sends an email back, says, simple question, but it requires a complex analysis, and he'll get an answer as soon as possible. He's never answered that yet, by the way. Here's from Katie Bro down at, he's down at Vicksburg, obviously from South Louisiana originally. But anyway, she sent this to Daigle this morning, who's the guy with CAW. CAW starting to worry, I think, a little bit because Hot Springs gave them over $100 million. No, over $1 million, $1,048,000. And they're wondering if Hot Springs might ask for their money back since they can't get water from DeGray. And again, here's Katie Bro saying, we need some of this information for Lake Washita reallocation. the Corps is interested in finishing that up. The city's not interested. Watkins doesn't reply, even though he could have mentioned that. He's saying the Broken Bow agreement with the Corps of Engineers is what they want to do. Broken Bow, of course, in Oklahoma, they have a different situation. And when he asked her that, Katie Bro down in Vicksburg then asked Amy, who's apparently over in Fort Worth, if she can explain why they don't have the same stipulations as the DeGray agreement. Now, if the water supply withdrawn from a re-reg pool, this is the rub. We probably ought to explain this before we go any further. The city of Hot Springs can take water from DeGray, but it's from a pool of water that is not the hydro pool or the main pool. This is a pool that is taken down at least every 5 years from 7 days to 30 days, during which time the city can take no water. Their intake will be dry. That's worse than a tanker gate failure, isn't it? You know you're going to lose your water supply.
It is the pool below the dam, is the re-reg pool, the best I understand it, because the Corps' interpretation, which you'll see in some of these emails, is that DeGray was created with the dual purpose of water supply and produce electricity. So they got to maximize both, so you got to use it for electricity first, then take it out of the pool below the dam. They pull it down at least every 5 years for at least 7 to 30 days, so they can inspect the base of the dam, seepages, Bill, you know all the riprap around, and do any necessary repairs. It could be longer than 30 days.
Okay, so when they're talking about a re-reg pool, they're talking about this pool that is subject to being taken down. And here's where they explain Broken Bow and why it's different. The conservation pool at Broken Bow is whatever it is, but it's a different situation. Now, David Watkins, this is him talking to Joseph Redican in Washington, D.C. He's trying to go over Vicksburg's head by going to the head man in Washington. And he said, we've been working on hammered out an agreement since late last fall, and the rules are now changing. They didn't know that this water supply was not going to be available 24/7, 365. Says our city has spent a large amount of money based on good faith and now run into the possibility the original agreement was flawed, and the Corps may have to perform reallocation study for the main pool. They don't want in the re-reg pool. Simple as that.
Did that say, was that an 18-month study? I think I looked at some of this. Wasn't that an 18-month study they're going to have to do to allow this?
That's what they estimated the Washita study is.
No, the DeGray study.
Yes, it would be a...
Yeah.
18 months.
What's this last sentence? What's the significance of that? Why does he say?
Katie's regrouping with her team to attempt to get a reversal on Fort Worth. Instead of Fort Worth.
Time is running out for us.
Yep.
Okay, here's the significance of that under the contract.
The public may find out.
They paid $1,078,000 for the option to get 20 million gallons a day. In addition, there's hidden cost of whatever it costs to buy the right-of-way. There's $25,000 per year cost until they get it up and going. There is a deadline of some 2017 that's in the contract where they have to have made application and secured the water. Now they've run into a situation both for Hot Springs and Central Arkansas Water, where they're going to have their intake facilities below the dam in the re-reg pool sucking air. So there's a major problem. What Little Rock did with this $1,078,000, and we have their resolution, they merely took Hot Springs check, put it in their bank account, and then forwarded it on to the Corps of Engineers to buy their 100 million gallons. They had 120 to start with. So they have 100 million gallons per day. So they sent Hot Springs $1,078,000. They've already spent it immediately, going to the Corps to buy something that's a pig in a poke. So Hot Springs bought a pig in a poke, Little Rock's bought a pig in a poke. They're financing the balance of it, and the interest rate is in there.
What is interesting is the total cost, what they're gonna pay for the 100 million gallons is not in there. Therefore, we can't compute how much Hot Springs would have to pay for it. But it really doesn't matter at this point, because the Corps is just flatly refusing to give Hot Springs a contract for the main water pool, the main lake. Vicksburg refused, Dallas Regional refused, the headquarters in Washington has refused, and Bob will show you email here in a second where the city is going through Senator Bozeman's office to try to put political pressure on or get legislation that would enable them to get reliable, dependable water out of the main lake. Go ahead, Bob.
Bill, I'm glad you pointed that out. Time is running out for us. I think if the public knew this fact, time's up.
I think the Hot Springs Sentinel Record would report it if they would.
The Sentinel Record has known this for a month. They have known this for a month, and they have concealed it. They have refused to print it. They have refused to print 2 of my letters that very clearly outlines the problem. They refused to print a news story on it.
Okay.
Despite legal proceedings that had it all in there, sworn under oath.
This is Watkins again conversation with Redken, who's the head of the Corps up in Washington, D.C. And they're going to set up a talk. They okayed the time, and he calls him at his desk. Okay. I will tell you this, with respect to Joseph Redken up in Washington, D.C., we did another FOI. It's not here because it's buried in a whole mess of them, but eventually the fellow in Washington, D.C. said, David, Mr. Watkins, I can't help you any further. You deal with the people in Vicksburg and Dallas. So he bowed out. Okay, now here's something that's pretty important. I'm not sure, you see what this says? Watkins is telling Katie Bro, who's in charge of the project for the Corps down in Vicksburg, he thinks it's bad faith for the Corps of Engineers to submit an agreement for a review committing water storage from the main pool and then taking it off the table. That's wrong. There's 2 or 3 places he actually had told them they were dealing in bad faith. I don't know, I've always thought if you're dealing with the government, you need to be a little more diplomatic than that.
I don't think that the Watkins understand diplomacy.
We know
Okay.
Folly does it.
That's Redken again. Now this is explaining, and there's no use in trying to read it all, but a combined pool and the re-reg pool and all of this. This is the explanation. It's written in federal policy. So they're not going to let Hot Springs violate it.
The first sentence says it all.
Yeah, first sentence does say, I wish it was simple. I want that one, which is what Watkins saying, we want this one. Here's one that's kind of interesting. After all this, see David Watkins wrote one to Stuart Noel and Bill Burrows and Dale Kimbrough. I think by this time he's starting to get a little hot under the collar perhaps. But you notice, does it raise a red flag to you that there's no body to this message? Only a beginning and an end? Would you say that's a violation of FOI? That you take a section out before you can forward it?
I see what you're saying now, I didn't.
So, this is the fellow from CAW saying, hey, that gal's just thrown in the towel. So the Corps of Engineers thrown in the towel, and even the Christian engineer, Stuart Nolan, says he believes that she's wrong. And they're going to go start talking to Bozeman. So they've given up on the Corps, they're ready to talk to Bozeman. Bozeman's not going to have a heck of a lot of influence. There we go, Dale Kimbrough. He wants to move it forward, maybe we can talk again. Now, you can forget Redken. He did hear back from Redken, but he's telling him don't bother him anymore. Okay, this is talking about the re-reg pool or re-reg dam.
their objection to Washita was the fact that they would have to go to Congress in order to get what they needed. And now here they are going to Congress to get what they need for DeGray.
Well, that's the story we were told, Mary. The true matter is, the head, the colonel down in Vicksburg has the authority to allocate 50,000 acre feet out of Washita. They don't have to go to Congress. Now, they didn't tell us that.
No, they didn't.
We had to dig that out.
Well, in fact.
What they were
Stuart
telling us is, yes, you gotta go to Congress.
Yeah, Stuart Nolan told us at the meeting at the library that it required an approval by Congress.
And I covered, there's a handful of things the city told us that are not true.
We have to remember, Stuart Nolan told us also that the city told him they wanted DeGray, and he worked to make DeGray work. That was his statement.
Yes.
Because I said to him, you know, you're marketing the strategy here. I said, if you're a marketing guy, you figure out how to eliminate all the options, all the alternatives, and you make yours work. And that's exactly what he's done.
Well, Jacobs was no slouch engineering company. They determined maybe not on the right side, but where the water's coming from.
Yeah. Well, Jacobs, I've used Carter Burgess before, and Jacobs bought Carter Burgess out, so I know they've got some good people. I hired Carter Burgess once and put him in charge of our water engineering. And
Well,
they do have some good people.
You know, if people in Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas knew we were having this struggle, they would think we're total fools. We're surrounded by water, and now we're gonna drive or go 20 miles south and get it. And I've got to go precinct too, but I want to go ahead and get it out because it just kills me. We should be getting water out of South Lake Hamilton, that 100 feet of water down there. Now, Bill, why can't we do that?
When they were working on Hamilton, we realized that they were really seriously giving that study. There's four old engineers here in town, me being one of them, Jim Offer, who's passed away, Milton Robbie, and Don Brady, wrote a letter to the city and told them that don't let those guys spend a lot of time and money on Lake Hamilton because the health department will never approve Lake Hamilton, the lower part of the water supply.
Why?
You ask them.
It's
Because of the pollution. Because they know we got a better source of water up high. That there's no chance of pollution up there. But in Lake Hamilton, a lot of chance of pollution. Why can't we use Arkansas River as a water supply? I mean, Arkansas River, what New Orleans uses Mississippi, and it's a sewer. But our health department will not approve Arkansas River or Lake Hamilton.
Man, you're telling me that
And they spent all that money, and we told them, don't. And when they hired Chris, I was very happy because I felt like, hey, this guy knows what the health department will approve. We won't have any more wasted bullshit. But they chose the wrong lake. But the reason they chose is what you said. It was a predetermined deal. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris came right out and said that they were given a very specific set of guidelines to follow.
Oh, yeah.
And it wasn't for the county. It was to benefit certain areas, the CAW primarily.
We got to get them turned around and spending that kind of effort on Washita that they're spending down there.
You've got it.
Because that'll work. Eventually.
it's
It took
like
us
the
10
core
years
is
to get-
almost ready. From what you put out there, it's like the core is
Yeah,
almost
they
ready.
asked us questions on Washita, and they just returned questions on DeGray.
Yeah.
Bill, I thought the reason on South Hamilton was a political reason.
Hey, Bob, some of the people are needing to go. Can we speed it up?
We'll speed it up.
It's me.
This is just different people, Stafford and Tulsa, and they can't even get through to her. This is just more of the same, saying it's a big problem.
Yep.
By the way, there have been no emails or letters since August 5th, I think is the last one. They apparently went totally oral, so they can do business in secret, and we can't see it. So we can get no emails, no letters. Now, Ray's gone, and he doesn't shoot off the hip. And I haven't looked at it, but it seems to me that violates at least the spirit of the Freedom of Information Act. They're doing business in secret.
Cliff, can you FOI record?
Their phone calls?
All you would get on the phone calls is the numbers. You're not going to get the content.
But that shows that they're doing
Yes.
what they're doing.
Yes, we can also FOI, which we have not, what is probably really going on here, and it is how much Hot Springs skims off the water department. There are separate funds that Hot Springs can't legally get at, except there are ways to get around the legal requirements. And they can skim off, we think, about 10% of the revenues coming in from the water department. So this is big business at a time when Hot Springs is essentially broke. That's what this is about. This is about revenue. And it's about the ratepayers of the county and the city paying for a project that will, that they're hoping we build it and they will come. They will come to 290 and southeast Garland County.
Okay, let me do this because some of y'all want to go. Let's just talk about the money, and I want to tell you my analysis. You can go right on the city website, the Economist Inc. letter. It's dated November of 2013. Talks about rate increases, talks about projection. You can get every bit of this information. I have nothing here that didn't come out of that report, November 2013, to David Watkins, City Board from Economist Inc. Okay? Inside the city, we got 13,300 users. Outside, we have 15,048. This is residential users. Okay, let's think about what that is. Projected inside the city for 5 years, because the city picked, or for 4 years, the city picked this 2018, only 1.3% growth, county 4.3. I ignored all commercial users because most of the commercial users use less water than residential users. If you look at it, a Walmart store is predicted to use 20 times, a Hart store was predicted to use 6 times from previous studies we had. If you look at a $10 increase, inside the city, it's going to generate $1,602,360 a year. Outside the city, at the existing rates, it's going to generate $2,825,640, okay? We have built into our water rates about a 3% increase every year anyway. So if you look at this plan, and they're saying 100 million maybe, and Bob had a number of 225, and I sort of did a little extrapolation and said, well, what if it was 162? But I didn't try to do that analysis to tell you how much it's going to cost. But all of the water accounts that we have, 2013, 34,599, projected to be 35,886 in 2018. This isn't a huge, it's not a huge movement. When we talk about our 10 million a day, when we talk about those peak periods, we've used less water in 2013 than 2012. I mean, we're not seeing a big step in the water usage, and I think you, Bob, brought up the question about wastage. You know, we're not attacking that problem. They're not giving us any statistics. I know they've been working on it, but they don't have the money to lay the lines. The water is cheaper than doing the plumbing, so to speak, folks. So if you look at that, and that's all from the city. I have a bill here, $13.11 for water, 4,700 gallons in a month ago. If it went up $10, that represents essentially an 80% increase. That's an 80% increase to the minimum user in town, okay? So we have to think about the demographics in our city, which we have a lot of poor people. You know, we're already pumping 3% in there on normal things. Now we're going to pump an 80% increase in it. When those folks, our population that lives on Social Security, they won't get 3% this year, I don't think. So I think we have to think about that. I can point you all to where this is. I can give you the statistics. You know, the need isn't imminent, there's not a crisis, I think we've demonstrated that. There's no justification to deny water to anybody in the county or the city. The city says they have 1,600 pending permits out there that may be exercised at some point. May, that's the key. That's because, Rick may correct me on this, they've either subdivided or platted, they could do this. But we don't have any plans going, we don't have, you can go out there and find me that construction.
I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I would too, but that's what they say. When they tell a prospective commercial user like Super Walmart or Walmart, 2 grocery stores and a Walmart, that's political, folks. This isn't a damn thing about water right now, it's all political.
2 words. Sales tax.
Sales tax. So then we get into, we don't have time today, I said to Rick I'd do it in 5 minutes, I'm trying to do that. We can talk about annexation, subject for another meeting, corridor annexation. I've been out there in front on that and beating them up. All they're after is money. So we've already talked about what Stewart said at the meeting that we held. I mean, he couldn't have said it, I couldn't have said it any better if I wanted to stand up and say it for him. It's all about what they told me to do. Let's eliminate all the other possibilities. You can look at that at economist.com. You can look at the rate study. It also talks about what's going to happen with the sewer down there in the future. Because as Cliff over here says, man, if we flush all this water down, we're going to have to treat it somewhere if we ever get it. So my question is, why would we want to spend all this money when we don't have anybody, no one has secured the water? That's what we did with the debacle back a few years ago. I appreciate what you said about Lower Lake, or Lake Hamilton in general, because Rick has me thinking about that at this time. And the 2018 deadline is the only thing driving the city. The city contract says they have to have this in place. That's to comply with the contract they have with CAW. That's the driver. All of this other stuff is they're trying to get to that driver because they said themselves, we don't need water until about 2030 if we just look at our existing growth, our existing patterns, and all those statistics, they come from the University of Arkansas. They're the same statistics that economist.com has. There's nothing that would tell you we need all this water at that time. This is about that contract they signed, folks, and money. And siphoning it off, they don't, you know, they don't move money, they move resources. You can move resources all day when you don't move money. Thank you.
By the way, let me point out, because I omitted it, we were going through, significance of this map, you see there by my thumb, that little square, Hot Springs Water Company future expansion areas. Look how much of that is to the south and east of that yellow line. That's customers in Hot Spring County they're expecting to serve, including one little corridor that goes all the way down to Interstate 30.
Well, I don't know who made this up, but Kimsey's not gonna stand for that.
This came out of this study right here.
Well, he might
by
have
Chris.
there. That, Kimsey's not gonna let them have there.
I would think you're right.
But they need to go through to the interstate. If you hit the interstate, can you not pedal water up and down the interstate?
I'm not sure about that.
Public domain right away.
Well, we have to remember that the city doesn't necessarily haven't been, I guess I have to say under Watkins' tenure, haven't been trying to comply with all the requirements in that. I mean, we've looked at a statement that says we can't take the revenue away from our fire department by allowing businesses to locate in the county. That's crazy because that's what he said and the Sentinel Record published it, I can't believe. We also have to look at what's happening downtown, Thermal Basin Fire District, how that's falling apart, how they didn't follow many of the laws governing what they were supposed to do. You know, we have a city in turmoil because our city officials are acting like Wild West cowboys. They're not acting like city officials and complying with the law and looking at things. Many of the things they want may be good, but they're going to have to do them in an orderly, legal fashion.
Let me say this, and we're done. David, Ken, Willie, Rick, here's where we are, what's been presented today. Now, the question is, where do we go from here? Here's your legal answer. The city has a legal right under the Chris contract to terminate with 60 days notice. They have to pay only up to the date they give notice of termination for engineering cost actually spent, and their expenses, of course. They have a right to terminate the Central Arkansas water contract as well. They can get their $1,078,000 back through multiple ways. They can sell it, they have the right to sell it or assign it. They have to offer it first to Little Rock Water, which would buy it back, I'm sure, so they can get that money back. So the only thing the city would lose if it stops this DeGray water project is the $25,000. They've made a one payment to maintain with the Corps the right to buy the water, and whatever they paid Christ up to date, as of the date of termination, and their expenses, and they spent $178,000 on the intake facility to enough Grubbs engineers, which may already be spent by the time they get around to canceling it. Now that will be it. So their choice is to exercise their options under the contract, get their money back, the overwhelming majority of it, or to poke another 60 to 70 to 80 to $100 million into this project that has all these problems. Those are the choices, Willie.